Just one quick reminder here, when we always comment, we're going to make comments in our code. We use that single quotation there to the left of our enter key on the keyboard. And any text that's in green in the code window, your computer is going to ignore. Okay, anything that's blue or a bluish color in there is code that the computer runs. And if it wasn't put there by you, if the Visual Studio did it automatically, you want to make sure that you leave it there. Let's jump back over to our design window. You're just cycling back and forth between those tabs up there. Okay, now that we have the code window open as well, we can do that. Pin my toolbox open again. So, here we have, a little program. We could run this program. Actually, there's something here. If I go up to this little green triangle here where it says start debugging, you'll also notice it has a F5 as a shortcut there. But I'm going to click that button and lo and behold, here's my window that shows up. Can't do anything with it. It doesn't really look all that attractive, but it opens as a program and I can click the red X there and it closes out. Okay, so obviously we've got to make it a little bit better than that. We got to have some things going on here. One thing that we need to worry about right away is naming all of the objects in our project. Okay, so that when we're trying to tell an object what to do, we know what object we're interacting with. So the first thing I would mention here is the form. We can have multiple forms in a project, so we should rename that right away. And this is going to be the one place that this is kind of different where we're renaming stuff. When you need to name your form, the best way to do this and avoid problems is to right-click on where you see Form 1 in your Solution Explorer and go to Rename. And when you rename it, make sure you leave the .vb at the end. But we're going to take out form there. And then all of our naming, every time we name something in our program, we're going to put a 3-letter prefix to tell us what that object actually is in the name. And then we're going to start with a capital letter that names it after that. So I'm going to call this hello world. Okay, so I've got form hello world right there. Now you'll notice a couple things by me changing the name up here. Notice how in the properties of form hello world, it changed it right away down here, and it's changed right here. Because I did it here, it changed in all those places, and I needed it to change in all those places. Okay, so if I would have changed it down here, it wouldn't have got changed in some of the other places, and it might not work as it should everywhere it needs to. So my 3-letter prefix for when I'm naming a form is FRM, and then the purpose of putting these capital letters in here is called camelback notation, is that, let's say I have a bunch of forms in a program. If I get a list of those forms and I want to select one of those forms, yeah, the FRM will always, group them together because that FRM prefix is there. But then because I've capitalized the first letter in the name after that, it's real easy to pick out the form I want visually by looking at it. Also notice up here in my Design tab and my Coding tab, the form I'm working with, the name just changed in all those places because I did it in the Solution Explorer over here. One thing you'll notice here is sometimes people will be confused when we're talking about naming something and the text property of it. Notice the one place that it didn't change was up here in the top left of the form. Designates what's up there is the text property. So I'm going to scroll down here till I get to the text property. It's in alphabetical order. So right here where it says Form 1, if I change what it says right there, hello world, notice now on my form that text property has changed. By the way, we're going to call this first one hello world. There's just kind of a tradition of people's first program that they write being called Hello World. So while I called the project my first project, the program when it runs is going to be Hello World. And your project that you're going to create this week and turn in is also, you're going to say, hello world, here I am. I've made my first program, right? So we've changed the name of the form. We do that in the Solution Explorer. We change the text property to hello world here. Let's go ahead and add an object. Now it's real easy to add objects to this form. Let's start with one that's, not that exciting, but it's pretty necessary and we use it a lot, and that's the label, okay? Now, I could do that. I could just double click on label and one's going to show up in the top right corner right here. I'm just going to get rid of it real quick. Or I could click and drag the label over here to where I wanted it to be on the form. If I wanted the label, let's get rid of that one too. I could also go in here at the label and then I click label and then I just drag across the form and it puts the label there too. Now, at this point in time, you notice there's only one little square in the top left corner. What that means for a label is that its auto size property is set to true. And a lot of times you'll want that because then what the label does is it resizes itself to whatever size it needs to be for the text that's entered. If you do set that, if you don't want it to do that and you set it to false, I wonder if you notice there where you could see me clicking and dragging. When I set that auto size to false, it went to the size that I had clicked and dragged across there. But now I have a label that I can resize no matter what text is in there. So sometimes there's situations where you want the auto size to true because text is going in there and it's going to vary and you want the label to automatically adjust. Sometimes you want this to false so you can really stipulate what the size of the label is, okay? If you're ever noticing that text is being clipped off in a label, probably the reason for it is you've got the auto size property set to false and there's more text getting put in there than it can hold, okay? So let's do two quick things here, all right? Let's go to our name here, and for a label, it should be called LBL is the three-letter prefix, and we're just going to call this LBL message. We should put something descriptive in there is what's going to be held in the label, but we're just going to put a little message in there to the rest of the world, I guess. So we're saying LBL message, and then our text property down here is going to say hello world. Okay, now I could certainly do some things with the text alignment. I could go up here and do some things with font. Notice I expanded that with the triangle and I could change the font size. I could change the type of font it is. So you've got all these properties that you can change for this so that it looks different. Okay, if I run my program now, up pops my window right there. Just got a little label in there that says hello world. You really can't interact with the label. It just kind of like its name states, it kind of labels different areas. So we might have some kind of interactive object on our form that a label is just labeling, or we might pop up a label to give a message to someone when something happens. But there you go. That's kind of a simple way where we can add objects in here and how we go about naming objects and dealing with some of the properties of those objects. If you want to open a project yourself and try that out a little bit, go for it.